let's get into some talk about alcoholism. Well, not necessarily alcoholism, but consuming alcohol. We know it's a pastime here in America. People like going to bars and drinking beer and all that nonsense.
It'll get you drunk.
But there's been some new research, or some research that's been going on, but just some updated news on its links to alcohol, its links to cancer, different types of cancer, actually. Specifically, there are like 7 types of cancer types that a person could have a risk of developing through alcohol consumption. And bro, I don't know if you want me to like mention those right now, or did you want to get into them individually? But I can name them right now. And we can just kind of like go into them. So there's
So what it is we're talking about here is that the Surgeon General advisory that has just recently been put out,
mhm.
talking about how alcohol apparently ain't good for you.
Yeah, apparently it's not.
But I feel like everything causes cancer though. Like
It
everything
appears it,
they
it
say
appears
this
that way.
everything causes cancer. Now,
Hmm.
you know what? I mean, I joke a little bit, but like on the real, there are legitimate reasons cited here by the
Hmm.
Surgeon General on what the the reasons are and the risk to consuming alcohol.
Yes.
This advisory describes the scientific evidence for the causal link between alcohol consumption and increased risk for at least 7 different types of cancers. These would include breast cancer, colorectal cancer,
Hmm.
esophageal, voice box, liver, mouth, and throat. The advisory also helps to
Yes.
better inform the public of this relationship and offers key recommendations to reduce alcohol related cancers.
Hmm.
Um, Alcohol has been well established actually as a preventable cause of cancer.
So one of the leading preventable causes.
Yeah, and keyword preventable.
Preventable. Yeah.
It is responsible for 100,000 cases of cancer and 20,000 cancer deaths annually in the United States.
Hmm.
The risk of developing these cancers increase with higher levels of alcohol consumption for certain cancers, such as like breast cancer and mouth and throat cancers. The evidence indicates that this risk may start to increase with even one or fewer drinks per day. I tend to drink, you know,
Mm.
a little bit
Yeah.
myself.
Hmm.
Am
Yeah. So it. Do you want to kind of get into
I supposed
like?
to?
I don't know.
What you trying to do?
I'm just saying, just trying to let you know, man, that it's preventable, man.
How much? How much? How much do you drink if you had to like calculate it per week?
For me, it's actually pretty rare per week. Maybe
Less
like
than one drink a week?
absolutely. I will go weeks without
Dang,
having like a glass of wine. It's maybe like
dang,
maybe once every 2 weeks or something like that. Like one, like literally one cup of wine, like every 2 weeks or something
dang,
like that.
bro.
Yeah,
Why they gotta hit me like that?
I'm just saying, man.
There used to be studies where like, oh, apparently a glass of wine is good for you. Like one
Yeah,
glass of wine a day is good
that's
for your
true.
heart,
Hmm.
kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I kind of know, these quote unquote vices. Dang, whenever they give you one of these things, they're like, "Oh, it's good for you to eat 2 cheeseburgers a day." Like, you gotta really look at that bit as like with some
Yeah,
skepticism.
yeah.
So, I mean, I know, I
Mm.
shouldn't be drinking as much as I do. I mean, I've actually cut down a lot,
Hmm.
especially since I have high cholesterol.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
already at like risk for some other stuff,
Hmm.
and that's just genetic.
Hmm.
But the Surgeon General put this thing out. Hopefully, I mean, this is science-based research here, so I don't know if the new administration is going to keep up with it because this actually came out previously in the Biden administration.
Hmm.
Um, so they're saying here how the mechanism, how this happens. So alcohol can cause cancer through several mechanisms, including the metabolism into was it
Acetyl,
acetaldehyde,
acetyl, oh,
acetyl
acetaldehyde. That's what acetaldehyde.
acetaldehyde. Okay,
Yeah,
is a
acetaldehyde.
toxin. It's
Yeah,
it's a toxic chemical that can damage DNA.
the
And
metabolite.
if you
Yeah.
know a thing about well, if the basics about cancer is like pretty much like this. Everyone, if you live long enough, will get cancer. Because what is cancer? Cancer is a deformation in DNA and cell mutation.
Mm-hmm.
And our DNA and our cells are constantly mutating as we every day, right? We talk about like your skin cells are shedding and all that kind of stuff. So you're like rebuilding those skin cells every day. A lot of dust in your house, that dust is made up of skin cells, right? As you age, as you get older, the things that you consume, the things that the environment you're in, there's radiation from the sun,
Mm.
yeah, all the things, you know what I mean? The food you consume, right? Your DNA is constantly repairing itself. It's breaking down, repairing. You work out a lot, right? You work out whatever proteins that you consume. All these things um are taken into account. You may come across COVID, right?
Mm.
You come across COVID, a pandemic, or all these things. And at some point, potentially that replication or that repair can go haywire, right? If you do it enough. So the longer you live, the greater chance that that replication has to go wrong. So inevitably, we live long enough would die of cancer. They call it dying of old age, but there's different reasons of different organ failure, you know, and that would be in this case, and this we're talking about here is cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Another mechanism is the induction of oxidative stress, leading to damage of DNA, proteins, and cells, and increasing inflammation.
Yes.
Another one is increasing absorption of other carcinogens.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you susceptible to other carcinogens that you may consume. So if you grill food, I grill a lot. Chicken.
Yeah.
I don't smoke, which bunch of carcinogens, but but like if you happen to be walking down the street and the car backs up and what I mean the
In the
muffler,
exhaust. Yeah.
the exhaust, what I mean, there's carcinogens in that,
Mm-hmm.
freaking the LA fires. You
Mm-hmm.
happen to be living there if you don't have the freaking N95 mask, and even that,
Mm.
what I mean,
Yeah,
there's
that's
some people
true.
that came out, they in their living room, they're down in their living room smells like a campfire, and they're not even in the center of the fire. It's just
Wow.
from the smoke in the atmosphere, right?
There are people who actually developed cancer from, if y'all remember the World Trade Center, the people who were caught up in
Yep,
all of that. There are people who
yep.
actually
Clean
developed
up.
cancer
Even the people
from,
that clean up,
you know, the people that cleaned
from
up.
that.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, alteration of hormone levels such as increasing estrogen, which can elevate breast cancer risk. So there's a lot of different ways that this can affect the alcohol consumption can just if the alcohol in and of itself isn't causing cancer, it makes you more vulnerable, right? To
Okay.
to certain mechanisms that have higher chance of leading to cancer.
Mm.
Um, so with the Surgeon General putting this out, you may be wondering like, well, so what does that do? It's not a law. You're not banning alcohol. You're
Not
not,
in, not in America.
yeah, not in America. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we had that before.
Yeah, the
That was
prohibition, but then
that was prohibition.
but that's where the onset of speakeasies came from.
Yep. So the history of
So,
alcohol prohibition in the United States includes the ratification of the 18th
mm,
Amendment. This was the Volstead Act, and then it was repealed with the 21st Amendment. So it lasted from 1920 to 1933.
mm,
Like Jeff was saying, this is where bootlegging
mhm.
became big. This
People
is
gonna
where
find a way. They're gonna
speakeasies
find a way to drink.
were established. And I
Yeah,
like going to a speakeasy, and it's nothing like
yeah.
it was
Speakeasies is a
before.
vibe. Yeah,
Now
it's
it's a
nice. Yeah,
vibe, but like
yeah,
before, them joints was really legit underground freaking alcohol
yeah,
dens where they
yeah,
keep alcohol at, right?
yeah.
Gang
Mm-hmm.
violence increased. This is where the rise of the American Mafia crime syndicate
Mm-hmm.
happened during that
100%.
period. And then of
100%.
course we had the Great Depression,
Yeah,
right? During
yeah.
that
Right. Yeah,
period.
during
So
that period
there
for
there
sure.
was a lot going on with it. And so they had to like completely America was like, nah, bro, you ain't gonna take
Yeah.
alcohol from
You can
us.
say this. Yeah.
You ain't gonna take
That's true. That's how people were coping. Yes, I understand.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so you tried so what did last though is things like you have to be 21 to drink, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually everybody. I don't. I think I haven't. I should look this up, but I think it is the age of to drink. Let me see, age to drink in each state. I can you drink 18 in the U.S. anywhere? In most states, 21. I don't see any. It says most states here. What U.S. territories can you drink at 18? Unlike within the United States
I
territories,
wonder if you can
Puerto
drink.
Rico
I
and the
was thinking
Virgin
Puerto Rico.
Islands.
Yeah, it might be.
Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands are the only places
Is
apparently that you could drink at 18.
at 18. Okay.
But something like that, at least lasted. So that helps. So all they could do now is like mitigate certain things like that when it comes to alcohol. Um,
Mm,
where and then you have things where like some cities you can't drink outside. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
You can't have open
Open
container.
containers. Yeah.
Open container laws.
Mm-hmm.
Um you can't, for example, you can't drink and we talked about earlier and possess a firearm. You can't drink and drive a vehicle, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's certain limits
Mm-hmm.
to how much you can drink and drive a vehicle. So the Surgeon General's recommendations here help, just like but it's not going to completely mitigate the activity.
Yeah.
I recall, and I hope I want you to recall cigarettes. Cigarettes used to be ubiquitous.
Oh, for
You
sure.
used to be able to smoke on a plane,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
That's so crazy, bro.
Surgeon General came out was
Yeah.
we started doing things like putting labels on the packages.
Mm-hmm.
We started making commercials,
Yep.
about not smoking.
Mm-hmm.
We started banning it from planes. I don't I
Started even
we
making
used
laws
to I
about
used
not
to
being
I
able to
used to
smoke within
work.
50 feet
Yeah,
to a building
we
and all
used to
that
be able
stuff. Yeah.
to there used to be a smoking section
Yeah.
in a restaurant
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
restaurants, and then became you can't smoke in a restaurant anymore,
Yeah.
right? And so what that is a change in culture that happened. But
Mm-hmm.
that change in culture happened because of the efforts of the Surgeon General, the I think this the FDA,
Mm-hmm.
and these PSAs,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a lot of the school movements, right? With teaching kids like don't smoke and kind of things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that reduced it to the point where right now it's hard to you hardly run into people that smoke.
Yeah.
You hardly run into people that smoke. It's become taboo now. So there's a chance that with this recommendation, it could have an effect like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where it can reduce the ubiquity of drinking in America.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, that's a heavy lift, though.
It is. It
that's a,
is.
that's. I mean, I
It
don't know how
absolutely is.
big it was for cigarettes to be a heavy lift.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dave Chappelle did a Saturday Night Live, and he does this on purpose, where he has the cigarette.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. That's
He's
his
done it
thing.
twice now. He has
Yeah.
a cigarette.
Yep.
He's really trying to push back on the
Mm-hmm.
norms and the kind of thing like that. And he's a
Mm.
comedian, so he does. You're supposed
Yeah.
to do that kind of thing. You push back on, but like
He's been smoking cigarettes for ever.
you look kind of wild. You know what I mean? You look kind of
But he
wild.
does. Yeah, he does. That is part of his bit actually.
It's part of his bit,
Part of his
and
bit.
it because it used to be something you do. Johnny Carson would be sitting there
Yeah.
with the cigarette. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
everybody would come on the show, you'd have a cigarette. You're on TV with
Mm-hmm.
the fumes going. The news report used to have a guy
Mm-hmm.
reading you the news, and he's got a cigarette.
That's yeah.
The late night joint, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You used to have sex and have a cigarette at the end. That used to be like a whole trope you saw in
It was the whole
movies.
thing. Yep.
Everybody
Yep.
roll over and poof, they light up a cigarette. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. Like that's so
Mm-hmm.
wild to me to think that like,
Yeah.
bro, all my clothes, all my furniture, all my bedding and stuff that smells like cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but that just to
Crazy.
be the way it was. And so we culturally, through the efforts of the Surgeon General and these things, we tamped that down.
Mm-hmm.
I and that's what this is. That's what this effort is to
Yeah.
tamp that down. But bro, you got restaurants that are just based off of drinking. You didn't have restaurants based off of smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Smoking was a side effect of it.
Yeah.
You have parties that are based off of drinking.
Literally. Yeah.
Keggers, we
Mm-hmm.
talked about, right?
Yeah.
Like this is based off of drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, you may have like a freaking a Douce party or a Hennessy
Mm-hmm.
event.
Yeah.
It's based off of
Off the
drinking, so it's
actual like drink. Yeah.
off the actual drink. So it's going to
Yeah.
be hard to really get this out of our because it's part of our culture as
Mm-hmm.
Americans
Yeah.
to
That's a
drink
definitely. Yeah.
alcohol.
For sure.
What is a football game without alcohol? Imagine
Mm-hmm.
that,
Yeah.
right? Another thing that they could do is they could raise the price of alcohol. That could help people reduce it, kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're gonna get a lot of pushback, and you may be right back to your freaking. I mean, I've had some good moonshine in my days, and the moonshine came from that sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And the thing
Okay.
is, moonshine is like freaking commercial now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So they don't
Yeah.
hit like
No.
it
It's
used to.
yeah. Yeah.
But you get things like that, niggas was going blind.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They making moonshine in prisons and stuff like that. That joint is
Mhm.
hurting people.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
you're like, you want? Do you want it to stay in the subculture? Do you want it to go back to the
Mm,
subculture, or do you want it to like really have it up here and regulated?
yeah.
So it's a tough thing. But hey, shout out to them to even making the effort. The recommendations for risk reduction, they're saying that to reduce alcohol-related cancer risk, individuals are advised to limit alcohol consumption,
Yeah. If you
abstain,
haven't put that
or
together.
or uh, completely abstain from it.
Yeah.
Public health strategies include increasing awareness of the alcohol cancer link.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if the alcohol poisoning, whatever, doesn't scare you, maybe the cancer part about it will scare
Yeah.
you. So they got to make sure they increase the awareness of that. Implementing policies to reduce alcohol consumption and considering updated warning labels on alcohol beverages. Maybe even putting like that skull and crossbones thing on these alcohol, like this is
Mm,
poison. You
yeah.
know what I mean? On alcohol bottles to inform consumers of these risks.
Yep.
So I'm putting that information out there. I could do better myself. I've been trying to do better. I've actually been doing better. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people did the dry January thing, but like we know how that New Year's resolution joint go. That big
Yeah, we know
give
how that
that the
goes.
two
Yeah.
three weeks,
Yeah.
and folks is off of that joint.
For sure.
So if
Sure.
you hear about your boy Darwin, esophageal cancer, freaking liquor did something. God
Oh my
damn it!
God.
I like wine. I like wine. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm a wine kind of guy.